Hey, do you want to be a gold goblin? You can be a part of the goblin horde by subscribing to this channel, but to be a gold goblin, all you have to do is jump on over to my second channel and give some of those videos a watch, where my bestest buddy and I, Noah, sit down in the same room now and talk about either one of the AFI's top 100 films of all time, or a foreign film that happens to strike our fancy. We just dropped our episode on Citizen Kane, which AFI claims to be the greatest film of all time, and here's a clip.
This is for all of you folks. I will be doing the entire video like this, so they still have to just look at my profile.
I think a lot of people are gonna be shocked to find out I have
a face?
I'm much taller than you naturally. This is our actual height difference.
Yeah, I'm only 5'6".
I'm 7'2". Are we ever gonna talk about movies now that we're in the same room? So if you'd like to see more of that, go ahead and subscribe to the discussion, but now, jumping into the news. Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I am your disheveled goblin host, Daniel Green, and today we are going to be getting into debacle after debacle. Not really, but we certainly have one to start with. I am going to warn you that this is one of those headlines where they want you to think it's dramatic and sexy, the Samwise of Lord of the Rings stories. But in reality, it's a lot more this. And that's going to be around the fact that headlines are screaming across the internet that, oh my gosh, Peter Jackson was ghosted by the Rings of Power. And if you just read that headline, it sure does sound like the evil overlords in charge of the Rings of Power decided that Peter Jackson is not worthy to see their scripts, and they have left him in shadow. And it's obviously a bit more nuanced and complex than that, but getting into the story, what appears to have happened is early on in the show's production, Peter Jackson was in talks to actually have some scripts sent to him, after he was asked if he wanted to be involved, and he said only if he could see the scripts. But that never came to be. Amazon did have an official response to this, where they essentially say we have certain obligations that are preventing us from handing over those scripts, and so nothing came of it. And of note, in the actual full context interview, which a lot of people seem to be forgetting of this, Peter Jackson is not trashing the show or acting like he's super hurt. He's just talking about the fact that he never got them, and that's a little disappointing, but he looks forward to the show. Of course, the internet being the internet, the people who had the strongest opinions on this started controlling the narrative, so you started seeing people be like, it's a sign that Rings of Power is terrible and egotistical. The actual reasons of the two most likely situations fall into two camps. One I find much more likely than the other. The first and one I find most likely is that there is some legal rights issue that mean if the scripts get put in Peter Jackson's hand and he gives them any form of critique or feedback, that could result in something down the road that could be an issue for the show. Yes, Hollywood has contracts and things like that that absolutely mean if someone touches something, it could be a big deal. And so that meant he just couldn't be sent them, despite the fact that it has been noted that the showrunners have wanted to put scripts in his hands. Other angle to this that people are saying is the cause of it, and I think is less likely but does still have some merit, is the Tolkien estate stepped in and made sure that Jackson had absolutely zero involvement with this show and never received a script, and this is based off the fact that apparently very early in the show's development as well, the Tolkien estate did make it known they did not want Jackson involved, and obviously the very opinionated quotes from Christopher Tolkien about the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy that makes it publicly known that the estate doesn't really like Peter Jackson's films. The fact that Christopher Tolkien went as far as saying that the movies eviscerated his father's work, I find to be a bit dramatic, but those are essentially the two most likely cases. I have seen people saying like the Rings of Power doesn't respect Peter Jackson, things along those lines. I seriously doubt that, and if I was a Lord of the Rings showrunner, I would desperately want to get the scripts in Jackson's hands for his thoughts, and it would certainly be something at the further above evil overlord daddy level that would stop it from happening, or I guess the crumpy old estate that hates fantastic cinema that stops it from happening. I don't necessarily think this is some gigantic ego trip from the showrunners or anything like that. And now for a sudden wardrobe change.
And this video is brought to you by Campfire. Have you ever wanted to write a world where everyone is hanging upside down and the blood is rushing to their head? Well, Campfire could allow you to take that idea from your noggin and put it into the page today at a price you choose, with incredible features like language creation assistance, timelines, character organizers, artifact creation and management, It's insanity! And so for as little as you choose in terms of price, you can download and try Campfire today and start getting the plans from your noggin into the page. And that's what I call a pretty nifty deal. So if you want to check out the longest supporter of the Goblin Clan in existence, you can go ahead and check the description down below and join Campfire today.
And Brotherwise Games, after their successful collaboration with Brandon Sanderson, where they put out a version of Call to Adventure Stormlight themed, is now apparently releasing a series of Stormlight Archive miniatures. So if you're a miniature collector, is that a big enough community in my audience to cover news stories for you? That's actually why I'm covering this story. I wanted to ask that question to see if there's anyone excited about it, because I've never covered, like, miniature news, but I do know that's a really big subset of the fantasy community, people who like miniatures. Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. But this specific project is coming to Kickstarter in 2022, so keep an eye out for that if you're a Kickstarter stalker. But I want to talk about Prey, a Predator prequel that's not hot garbage. I'm excited to say that I watched Prey over the weekend with my family, and we really enjoyed it. It's schlocky, good fun, as the Predator series, when it's actually good, tends to be, and I really enjoyed the franchise stepping back a bit into the simpler formula that definitely works for this premise more. It's schlocky horror, so there's just good kills, some fun characters to get behind, and a remarkably successful leaning into atmosphere that I quite enjoyed. But that quickie review out of the way, Prey is also Hulu's biggest movie or TV series premiere ever, and that doesn't surprise me because I'm just shocked this wasn't in theaters. It's like when HBO Max started getting like Godzilla vs. Kong. Yeah, that's gonna do good, but I guess this is the ramifications of the COVID era for cinema, where the pattern of streaming services nabbing up major releases is going to continue and live beyond the pandemic, even though the pandemic is technically still ongoing. It seems the industry has adjusted and adapted where, hey, streaming services now are something that movie theaters are also going to have to be competing with. Not that that industry needed more competition when it comes to releases, but there we go. Now, actually going against something I said earlier, we're getting some pretty interesting behind the scenes looks for Arcane, continually on the League of Legends YouTube channel. We had a video drop called Arcane Animation Test, and it's already quickly garnered over 1.3 million views as of recording, and I expect it'll be far higher by the time this is actually out. But if you're a fan of Arcane and you'd like to see how the souffle is made, go ahead and check this out, because I think it's remarkably high quality for an animation test, yet it's still so far from the final product we got in Arcane, and it just makes you appreciate that final product all the more. Last little note to add on here, I'd love to cover more Arcane content. After I watch the show, I plan to make a bunch of Arcane videos. They have been the most strict when it comes to striking my videos anytime I include their footage. It's why the footage used for this like animation test was so brief, because I'm terrified to cover anything more than that, and I can't really make too much more Arcane content because of that. And a Sandman headline has caught the eye of the Goblin, because Neil Gaiman has confirmed that there's already plenty of ideas for season 2, including a rematch to end all rematches. And Gaiman, I don't think that's the case. I think rematches are going to continue, but it's an exciting claim. It's safe to say that Sandman has been a big enough success for Netflix for them to continue into a season 2. I personally have been enjoying it so far. I'll be recording and releasing a review with Kayla tomorrow, but I do have quite a bit of thoughts of how the show did succeed in big ways and where it began to falter as well. So keep an eye on that for the channel. But I'd like to close off this fantasy news by going back to what feels like the roots, the origins, the beginnings. And that's going to be the fact that the Wheel of Time Origins is getting a brand new printing from the Broken binding. Cool to see this company continue to nab big titles like this, and it's also a really different looking edition of this Wheel of Time subset book. It's not a part of the main series, but you know, it's an offshoot. The more I look at this, the more I'm fine with it overall, but as a Wheel of Time fan, I'm a little disappointed there isn't more utilization in covers as a whole for the series in terms of the immense lore and spectacular scenes that are going on. I even talked about this with Kayla, and she pointed out that it feels a little generic to just do colorful, symbol, page fringing, done. I get it, and it looks fine. I actually think the aesthetics of it are neat, but I would like to see more Wheel of Time covers for companion pieces or the original series that aren't one, just showing something that's not in the series at all, and two, actually depicts some of the most iconic scenes from one of the best-selling fantasy series of all time. And what's spectacular to me is seeing the Broken Binding taking such effort to put forth a special edition of the Origin, just absolutely slam dunks on the 30th anniversary for the first actual book in the series put out by Tor. Does that feel good, Tor? Does it feel good? I hope it doesn't. What the hell was that? But this has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. If you would like to see me doing some non-fantasy related content and diving in deep to the 100 greatest films of all time, go ahead and check out the discussion with my best buddy Noah King. It's a really good time and we're actually in the same room now. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. I got books, I got merch. I love y'all so much, and thank you for giving me the job that I have. Have a good one. Bye.